Just how bad has Florida State recruiting been and put the Noles in the position to be 0-2?
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith. Thank you once again for making this your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in to talk some Noles football with me. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. I've done some research, and I knew it wasn't great, but boy, was I wrong, because it is terrible. I went back and looked at the 2020 and 21 classes for the Noles. Those would be the seniors and fifth year seniors and the seniors. The Noles are not exactly where they need to be, to put it mildly, with their upperclassmen that they recruited directly from the high school ranks. This podcast is going to define just how bad it was and why the reliance that Mike Norvell and his staff had on the transfer portal has worked at one point, but now has not just teetered off, it's fallen off a cliff. So without further ado, we're going to break down the 20 class. It is one of the worst in recent memory in terms of production. And unfortunately, it's really bad at not just one, not just two, but three positions that are paramount for success at any football program. Division I, Division III, I don't care what it is. Quarterback, O-line, D-line. You stink in the trenches, and obviously if you're bad at quarterback, what happens? You lose. Florida State is 0-2. They had Jordan Travis transfer in after his 1 year at Louisville. Took him a while to get going, but he helped them get to the point where they weren't not just good, they were elite. Kind of an exception to the rule. But think about the following. If Jordan Travis hadn't panned out and or been injured, let's say in 2021, had a horrific knee injury or something, and couldn't do the things that he did just ad-libbing beyond learning the offense and getting better as a passer, where would Florida State have been? Because Chubba Purdy's not the guy. They missed in 20 and 21 a quarterback. And whenever any program misses in consecutive seasons at quarterback, the onus to absolutely nail a transfer quarterback is there. Same deal with the offensive line. I remember, forget which pod it was, might have been War Chant. I can't remember. This was 2019. I was listening to a pod on Florida State right before the season, and somebody said this just blew my mind. This is partially due to the last staff that came in before Norvell and the staff after that, Jimbo at the end of his tenure. It was just bad across the board. But they said in 2019, like this class we're working on, they're talking about the 20 class, ironically, if things go well, and starting like next year, they'll be slightly below average on the offensive line. I'm like, holy moly. The depth is that bad? And in the 20 class, which I just went over, they literally went 0-3 on the main guys that didn't play that much or whatever, like just didn't play. And then there's one kind of asterisk, and that's Robert Scott. He's been banged up a bunch. Obviously a very gifted player from a physical standpoint, but he's been hurt a lot of his career, and he just hasn't been that good, especially this year. So depending on how you want to rank Scott, there are three guys that like just didn't play on the offensive line. And then Scott has been troublesome at times at Florida State, whether it's pass protection, whether it's getting a run gap taken care of that should be basic, and then just poor technique, whatever it is. He has failed as well. So you're 0-4 in my book, at least. Again, not trying to pick on Scott, but he's been banged up a lot, so it's kind of hard to grade him. 0-4 on O-line in the 20 class. Defensive line, you had one kid that signed. I don't think he ever ended up at Florida State, and then the Griffiths kid that played at IMG didn't make any dent, transferred out. I don't know where he ended up. You're 0-2 there. You had Purdy at quarterback in 2020. So I didn't even get to like corner, because like if you miss on that many, the class isn't successful right off the gate. Right out the gate, man. You're in trouble. That's what set up a lot of what happened in 22, 23, and 24, making sure they get the portal, because they were trying to make up for that class. Now, there's two parts to this on why they had to be in that position. Number one, again, this is not Norvell and his staff's fault. What they walked into was a disaster by Florida State standards, by any form of an upper echelon program in terms of status, the helmet, the program's mystique, the national titles, the former coaches, any way you want to put it, where the roster wasn't specifically at O-line. I don't know how it got that way. I'd have to talk to some people that have been at Florida State for years and years to get the true answer there. But you can't be in that spot to begin with because it makes recruits that are playing those positions like, why would I want to come join these guys? Great players want to play with other great players. Think about the 20 season. How many guys would you say were quote unquote great offensive and defensive line that were recruited out of high school to Florida State? They had a few guys that were pretty good. How many were great? Now, beginning in 20, like you got Jermaine Johnson, obviously you got Verse, you got some portal guys. They killed it with some of the portal stuff they did. There's no doubt. Norvell and that entire staff did a great job. They really did. But you can't sustain that forever. And I talked a little bit about that this spring. I was wrong, though, because I thought they were going to be able to bridge the gap this season. And starting next year, they'd start being a top 10 team every year, just kind of by default, because they'd have enough high school kids in the freshman and sophomore classes to get them to where they needed to be. Obviously, myself and the vast majority of realistic society, the people that hate Florida State, was, oh, you knew this was coming. No, you didn't. You were the same people that said Florida State was going to suck last year. The idiot brigade that comes on and comments on the YouTube channel and stuff for Locked On Seminoles, you can take a hike. I could care less. But those are also the people when their programs struggle and disappear, the idiot brigade. The point is still saying, though, Florida State got behind, partially due to the last staffs that came in the last couple, including Jimbo. That trend downward with the O-line was going on for years. Around 20 was the nadir, the bottom of the barrel, the end of the rope, whatever phrase you want to do. And then they just didn't hit it either. At 21 class, after missing in 20, I look at it again, but I'm pretty sure they're just as bad. The 2021 class, it didn't hit the mark either. And I just can't understand how a program like Florida State, you would think there would just be a few kids that either like their dad played for the Noles, or they grew up in Florida, they wanted to play early. You would hit on somebody that wasn't just good, but was like, this guy's going to be a dude. He's going to play right away. And it's just going to work out. And I'm going through looking at this list. But they didn't get Byron Turner, who's a pretty good player now on the defensive side. But like offensive line to miss, literally 2 years in a row, they didn't get a guy that's been a consistent starter. 2 classes in a row on the offensive line, and on the defensive line in 20 and 21, they did need, like, it's insane how bad it is. And I haven't delved into the secondary, the receiver running backs quite as much, but when you miss that badly in the trenches, it's insane. Florida State is behind the 8 ball there. Now, they got lucky with the COVID thing because 2019, Mo, Darius, they got a couple pretty good players. That works out because they're playing now. They're not obviously a great unit overall up front on the offensive line, but imagine what Florida State would be without them. I mean, they're averaging 2.53 yards per carry with 2 talented players as 6th-year seniors at the pivot and at left tackle, the blind side for DJ Uiagalelei. Imagine where Florida State would be without one, if not both of those players. Holy moly. Now, they surely would have tried to get somebody else in the portal, but those kind of players just aren't available. Center is really hard to find. Left tackle might be the hardest in all of the portal. So they're not doing well, but it could be worse. Defensive line, they got behind. Patrick Payton in the 21 class, I was wrote down some names. These are just some of the kids that, it's not a complete list, but these are just my own takes on some of the guys that have been standouts or at least pretty good players from some of these classes. I did 20 to 22 because that's your 5th year, your senior, and junior players. The guys you're going to rely on, right? 2020, a couple of the guys that I think are standouts. Lawrence Tofili, that's kind of a self-explanatory thing. He's went through the program, done it the right way, been a consistent football player. This year, it's not gone well, but it hasn't gone well for really anybody other than the other guy they came in the class with, and that's Alex Mastromanno. He's not good. He's elite. He's probably going to get drafted or be a guy that at least makes it to an NFL roster in some capacity. He's a really good punter. 2021, the only guy I personally consider a standout and it is this year either, kind of like with Tofili, that's Patrick Payton. Patrick Payton last year, even though Verts was on the other side, which makes it easier, I get that. He kind of took a step up. He had 10 batted down passes. That's an insane stat. To get 5 in a year is really good. He doubled that. He's a guy that is annoying off the edge. But I don't think there's anybody else I would put in like that top-notch category that can change games. They do have several other guys kind of on that edge that at least at times have been there. Kevin Noles, Shaheem Brown, Joshua Farmer, Amari Cooper's back, Byron Turner. There's guys that have made some big plays, that have been consistent in the rotation, etc. They're good players. One or two of them might end up on an NFL roster. You got to see how their career ends. The 20 class, you got Portier, you got Ja'Kai Douglas, you got Lundy. Those guys are all good football players. But the depth of starters from the 2021 classes is really bad. I missed on this, and I think a lot of people did, on just how many starters were recruited. Now, if you want to get into the blame game, do I think Norvell and his staff have quote unquote maximized? No. They're not very good high school recruiters until otherwise proven. That is my take. I think they need to literally get rid of a couple guys on the staff. I hate saying that after this year, regardless of how it finishes, because they're not going to get to where they need to go until they change their recruiting. How do you change recruiting? You change the people that do the recruiting, because it's about relationships. Florida State's not good enough. They're solid, the top 15-ish in recruiting, and they're on that edge of top 10. But with this season going down the toilet, they're not going to finish in the top 10 in recruiting. They'll be lucky to finish in the top 20. That's a program killer. There has to be staff changes after this season. Fired, gone, goodbye. I'm not going to get into specifics right now, but I'm sure some of you have some ideas. We'll talk more about that here in just a minute on Locked On Seminoles. Have you downloaded the Gametime app yet? If you want to go to a concert, if you want to go to a baseball game, a Florida State game, there's an opportunity for you at Gametime, and it's really convenient. The best concert I ever went to was a combination of Metallica and Guns N' Roses. Back in the day when I went to them, coming out of high school, you didn't have Gametime app. You didn't have the internet and all the different things. Wasn't as easy. But I did go to one of the best concerts of my life. Fortunately for you, for me, and everybody else, Gametime allows you to do that really quickly, even if you didn't get in the mix to get tickets right away. You can download the app, get on there, and search for whatever it is you're trying to do rather quickly. Type in Metallica, type in movie tickets, whatever it is you're looking for. It'll get you to where you need to go and quickly. Here's the other cool part about it that I like. You want to know where you're going to be sitting and what the view is going to be like. I've done it on my phone, and I'm sure that you can do it in about 2 seconds as well. You click on a seat, it'll show you the view of that venue from your location. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. This is an easy way to do it. Just download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. This show is also brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is what makes your ride or die stay alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to take your car and make it the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Now, we talked about O-line and D-line. There were a lot of misses in that 2021 class, which fifth-year seniors, and then the next year, the seniors that you're seeing right now with the Noles. Some of them can maybe step up, but a ton of them have transferred out. A lot of them have been hurt. It's been a problem. But just like with O-line, D-line, there is another position that has, quite honestly, been bad. Quarterback. When you miss a quarterback for 1 year, it can be catastrophic. When you miss at quarterback 2 years in a row, it's not even definable. The only thing left is the portal or the option to just completely crank it out of the park and hit a 5-star. Tennessee basically did that, and they got Nico. They went out and bought it. Let's just be honest. But Florida State hasn't done that. And while there's like one Nico a year, if you're lucky, I don't know if I've ever seen a kid with that kind of arm strength out of high school. There just aren't many of them. The price tag Tennessee put up was crazy. So Florida State ends up with Tate Rodemaker after Purdy. Neither one work out. The last two classes, you got Brock Glenn and Luke Kromenhoek. Personally, I like Kromenhoek the best of those four and by a pretty big margin, but Glenn is a year ahead of him and knows the system. Right now, obviously, DJ Uiagalelei is the starting quarterback. I don't know how much longer that's going to last. He is the transfer that spent 3 years at Clemson, 1 year at Oregon State, and of course is now in Florida playing for the Noles. But I did a little research today, kind of looking at it, and the two things stood out to me. Number one, many of you, correctly I might add, brought up how when he was signed, or even before he was signed, myself included, said this, is he a fit for the Florida State offense? And what I mean fit, is he the best fit? I want people's comments on this. Is there any point in Norvell's career where it's definitive that he coached a pure pocket quarterback and had not the success, elite success? I haven't studied that a lot. Remember, he was at Arizona State, obviously at Memphis, but a true pocket quarterback. And if he did have a lot of success, what level was it? Well, the only place he's been that's been pure Power 5 as a head coach, obviously, is Florida State, but he's been a coordinator. Maybe there's something I don't know, but I think it was a mistake because I don't see the fit. And here's one of the stats. I got to find this bad boy, but here's one of the stats that I was thinking about earlier. DJ is 8 of 18, 44% on second down so far this year. It's only 2 games. I get it. It's not like a crazy number or anything, but like he's got no touchdowns, no interceptions. To be under 50% on first, second, third, or fourth downs is not a good sign. But second down is a critical one because you want to get either a first down on that play or at least put yourself in manageables. When you're getting over half the time at 0 or, like a throwaway, just demoralizing plays on second down, it kills your offense. And I looked at Florida State's pass rate, the run rate on first down. They're throwing the ball just over 51% on first down. So a lot of the times he's failing there too. Either the completion's too short, which that's been a topic here, or B, he just misses, or there's a drop. I mean, it's just so many bad things have happened on Florida State's first and second downs. It's crazy. But again, 44% on second down. To use a comparison going into today's game against Memphis, the Noles are in a really weird spot because I look up the second down stats for Mr. Hennigan. This year, it's what you want it to be. Hennigan has thrown 20 passes on second down. He's 15 to 20, 75%, 177 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. So he's averaging over 8 yards, almost 9 yards a play, and no interceptions. He's on time, on the money, keeping ahead of the chains. Florida State's the polar opposite. If I'd have saw this stat before I did my prediction, I probably made my prediction a little different. I'd have made it even more for Memphis. I picked them, for those of you who didn't see, on Friday, I picked the Noles to get beat 31-27. I probably would have went like 35-27. He's so good on second down. That's a huge part of their offense. It's the best down for him. They're in so many manageable third downs or getting a first down, not even getting into a third down, that it changes what they do. Florida State's the opposite. So Florida State needs to not just be better in recruiting. It's across the board. Like I mentioned a few minutes ago, they got some good players in the 21 class, but not enough, and certainly not enough high-end guys. Part of it's on the prior staffs, part of it's on Norvell's staff. But I am steadfast. They're going to have to be staff changes after this year, or you will see a lot of negativity on this podcast, even more than you see now. Because recruiting is, in my opinion, 80% of your program, like it or not. And Florida State staff is not good enough. They started to hit better with the 24 class. It's pretty darn good. But now with the way they're losing, they're probably going to lose more kids. They already lost 2. Did podcasts on both those kids. Myron Charles, that was the big D tackle you're supposed to get out of your own state. He flips to Texas. That's not good. Hilson, arguably the best pass rusher in the United States from Cocoa. He's going to be at Florida this week. I mean, Florida stinks. He's looking at all kinds of places. Texas A&M are going to get visits. It's crazy. You can't lose those kind of guys. Again, you're kind of going back to that 2020-21 deal. If you miss it D-line, what happens? You rely on the portal. I mean, how many times are you going to get lucky and get a Jared Verse? I mean, the odds are going to fall against you at some point. Just saying. And it also puts more onus, again, somewhere down the road to go back to the portal. They've done a tremendous job with it. This year's been unfortunate, but overall, Florida State's done a tremendous job with this staff on the portal. That's the one thing. It's just not negotiable. It's fact. However, to stay out of the situation where it's win or go home with recruiting, you just got to recruit better. Part of it, I get a few guys getting hurt and all that stuff. It happens to every program, though. Florida State's misevaluated. They've under-recruited, and they've missed especially at critical spots in the trenches. That just can't happen. This class, no matter what that they're working on for 25, they got to find a way to get a few more studs and preferably get at least one of the 2 kids that decommitted back in Charles and Hilson. Hilson, I think, is an NFL player. His motivation's insane. He's a great story, but they've got to find a way to do that. Right now, why would any kid want to play for Florida State on either side of the ball? So they got to play better to get the better recruits. It's that simple. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this on Sunday. Going to do a live show at some point. Don't know the exact time. I am going to also do a live show later today, towards the end of the Florida State game. If it game's out of hand one way or the other, I'll start the show a little early, but give or take right around 3:45, 4 o'clock, going to do a live show. I have no idea what's going to happen today. I think it'll be a pretty close game, but I'm really curious to see what everybody thinks, because Florida State, quite honestly, if they go 0-3, this season is in serious jeopardy of being one of the worst in the last 40 years for Florida State. They can't lose to Memphis and expect the things that I was just talking about with recruiting to work themselves out. So with that, please hit that like button, hit that notification bell, subscribe to this podcast, rate and review, share it, and comment. If you've got something you want to talk about with recruiting, something you'd like me to discuss, fire away. I think those are all worthwhile deals, and I truly appreciate you once again coming in to see me here at Locked On Seminoles and making this your first listen each and every day. Now go check out my buddies over at Locked On ACC. There's a lot of stuff going on there right now. The ACC is just wild, not just Florida State, but across the board. Florida State could still end up in the top 4 of the league, and it wouldn't shock me. Like the possibilities are crazy. And I don't think Florida State's very good, but this league is just topsy-turvy this year, maybe the most in the country. I'll talk to you later today at the live show. Again, I'm going to have a link put up here in just a little bit. See you then later this afternoon.